Strange PEP8 recommendation on comparing Boolean values to true or false. At the end of Python PEP8 I'm reading, don't compare Boolean values to true or false using equals. I have no problem with that recommendation when the Boolean is true, but it sounds strange when checking for false. If I want to know if a variable greeting is false, why shouldn't I write the following? If I write, if not greeting column, it will have a very different meaning than the above statement. What if greeting is none? What if it is an empty string? Does this PEP8 recommendation means that variables storing Boolean value should only contains true or false and that none should be avoided for these variables? To my eyes it looks like a recommendation coming from other languages with static typing, and that does not fit well with Python, at least for comparing to false. And by the way, why is, if greeting is true column, described as worse than, if greeting equals true column? Should we also understand that, if greeting is false column, is also worse than, if greeting equals false column?
The way I understand it, the PEP's recommendation implies that, if you know can be reasonably sure of the type of foo, which is usually the case, then testing for the explicit false value is redundant and reduces readability. For example, in foo equals I for I in range 10 if I equals x, you can be fairly sure that the only false value foo can have is, assuming no exceptions are raised. In this case it is redundant to use foo equals and not foo is better. On the other hand, the semantic value of foo equals or foo equals false is sometimes more valuable and should then be used imho instead of not foo. It depends on what, specifically, you are trying to communicate. In fact, not foo means foo has a false value, whereas foo equals false means foo has the same value as false. The PEP states that everything it contains are guidelines. There are exceptions to rules, and this one is no different.
I believe you're reading it wrong. Try not to think of greeting as a noun so much as a verb. I am greeting instead of this as a greeting. You can see the clue in the preamble to PEP8. One of Guido's key insights is that code is read much more often than it is written. The guidelines provided here are intended to improve the readability of code. To that end, code should resemble the written or spoken word as much as possible. You don't say, if I am annoying you is true, let me know. In real life, you just say, if I am annoying you, let me know. That's one reason why you tend to see Boolean variables like is open and has been processed a lot, since they aid in readability of the code. You should never do something like or, simply because you already have a Boolean value in the variable name. All the equality is giving you is another Boolean value and, invoking reduction ad absurdum, where would you stop?
The simplest reason to not compare truth via equals or not equal comparison seems to be this. It checks whether the value passed is exactly true/false, not whether it evaluates to true or false. This behavior allows this. Whereas, which seems counterintuitive, which is why I expect PEP8 says don't do it. As said here, use this for identity, but use equals for equality. You only want to use, if var is true, when you need the bool value true, but want to reject one, some string, etc. Such cases are probably not obvious to most readers. I suspect PEP8 claims it's worse for being potentially misleading. From time to time it may be a necessary evil, but if you find yourself meaning, it's true, it may be indicating a design issue. In any case, you should probably comment why you need exactly true or false if you do ever use is.
This is part of duck typing. In Python, you usually don't want to restrict what you accept to a specific class, but to an object that exposes the proper API. For example, I can do this. Saying, if enabled equals false, would cause this to not work. False is a false value, but it's not the only false value. Avoid comparing to true and false for the same reason you avoid using isinstance.
If you want to see more, please consider subscribing.